for your time.
Thank you so much.
Let me introduce you to the viewers about our speaker this afternoon. The gentleman you are seeing right beside me is Mr. Babatunde Bamidele Komolafe. Mr. Komolafe holds a BSc in Business Management from University of Nigeria, Nsukka in the year 1990 and MBA from University of Lagos, Akoka, with City Advisement Program certificate from Lagos Business School, Aja, Lagos. He's also a member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICANN, and a Certified Chartered Institutes of Taxation of Nigeria, CITN. He has over 2 decades of experience in insurance and financial industries, spanning through Leadway Assurance, Equity Bank, First Atlantic Bank, of course, now it is FCMB, from where he retired as an area executive, Ikeza area. Upon retiring from financial industry, he also had a stint in importation and distribution in business of fast-moving consumer goods, having joined Thomas Group Limited as General Manager COO briefly for 2 years, 2011 to 2013. He has attended a number of financial training programs within and outside the country. While working in consultancy capacity for Entrion Consultants Limited, is it Opefa and Company, American Snacks and Bakery Limited for many years. He subsequently joined Ethan and Carter International Limited and has been actively involved in government procurement business to date. He is married with blossoming children. So thank you, Mr. Babatunde.
Thank you so
we welcome
much.
you again
Thank you.
to this discussion which we are trying to put today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dewish Mistra. It's
So,
nice.
Mr. Tunde, to start with quickly, I will get back to the discussion. Like we are seeing and we are talking a lot. In fact, if you see the business world today, they're talking about Nigerian tax reforms.
Yeah.
Okay? And as we know, the best and the biggest job of any good governance is to reform the system, create a conducive policy.
Yeah.
An environment where businesses thrive, people grow, prosperity comes. So my first question to you will be, how you break the Nigerian tax reforms in some easy lines, for people to understand. Yes, please. Over to you, sir.
Well, I would answer this question exactly the way you have put it. But before then, I need to just say a few things about the Nigeria tax reform. In fact, this happens to be the first major overhaul, in the Nigeria tax system or tax regime in decades. It has never been this entrenching, but it's been very, very interesting that it touches a lot of complexities that we've had in the system. The key goals, for these reforms are very simple to just simplify, just like you have said, simplify compliance, widen tax base, increase government revenue, and income, ensure a more friendly, investment environment in the country, and these are some of the things that this reform has been able to address. It has consolidated all those various taxes, taxes that are initially having some intertwining interface. It was at a point very complex for people to understand. Those taxes have been consolidated into one major statute, one major law, and that is going to help the ease of doing business in Nigeria. Yeah, going to your question now, we want to look at the framework for the tax reform in Nigeria. The tax reform basically has about 4 major framework. We have the Nigeria Tax Act, we have the Nigeria Tax Administration Act, we have the Nigerian Revenue Service Act, and we also have the Joint Revenue, Board Establishment Act. These two acts, the last two, that's the Nigerian Revenue Service Act and the Joint Revenue Board Act, are establishment acts. I will explain those things to you as we move on. Then I also need to mention that the Nigeria Tax Act has consolidated a couple of taxes that have been several taxes that we've had in the past that people taxpayers were having issues with, taxes like corporate income tax, personal income tax, petroleum profit tax, capital gain tax, stamp duty act, and value added tax. All these ones have been brought together under the same umbrella, and you see as we break down the way the new tax reform has addressed some of the complexities that taxpayers have either been facing in the administration of those taxes. We'll begin to look at them one after the other. It's been a lot of great efforts have been put together to ensure that the NTA now, NTA simply means Nigeria Tax Act, and the NTA, any time you hear me say NTA, I mean Nigeria Tax Administration Act. Well, that is the one that talks about how these taxes are actually administered. It has put together, it's now coupling together, taxes that are like the SITA we used to have, company income tax, personal income tax, petroleum profit tax, all those VATs that we used to have, Casino Act, ITCA, those are the old names. All these things have been put together now under NTA and NTAA, and we now have the former Federal Inland Revenue Service now coming into Nigeria Revenue Service, which is the apex revenue institution in Nigeria today, and the Joint Tax Board is now being replaced with a Joint Revenue Board in Nigeria. This basically is the framework of the Nigeria Tax Reform Act 2025 that we have operating in Nigeria. And let me also mention that the effective date of these taxes, though this came forth, the conclusion was it was concluded in 2025, but the effective date is 1st of January 2026. So every company, every individual is expected to have been prepared, for the effect or the implementation of this from the 1st of January this year. So all evaluations that will be done now will be effective from January 1st, 2026, in line with the Nigeria Reform Act. Thank you.
That's great. So thank you, Mr. Babatunde Komolafe.
Yeah.
So before we move further, I'll have some one-off question for you.
Yeah.
Have you heard about a tax called GST in India? It's called Goods and Services Tax, which government has also tried to reduce, coming from a multi-level taxation to a single window taxation.
Yeah.
So for assessor and SSC both, it becomes easy. So I think
very true.
The federal government has tried to bring tax in such a way, to breaking it and making it simplifying for the
exactly what the tax reform 2025 is trying to address. We've had a lot of issues in the past. I want to break them into like 4 different heads.
Okay.
The problems we've been having in taxes before. It was now, brought down to, it was now narrowed down to what we have in the reform. For taxpayers, we'll be having a lot of multiple taxes, just like you said you had in India before. We did not have one single tax that now, took care of those various taxes that were conflicting at the point. We've had the same experience in Nigeria. We have multiple tax collecting agencies. Sometimes local government will be collecting what state government is supposed to be collecting. At the end of the day, it is the taxpayer that suffers because the local government guys are in your office to collect tax. The state's internal revenue service are in your office to collect the same tax. And these are some of the things that have been streamlined with this. We also have complex rules in taxes in Nigeria. Heavy compliance burden of course, it is expected when you see two different institutions asking for the same thing in your office. Of course, it's the same taxpayer you're talking about, so the compliant burden will be so heavy on the taxpayer. These are some of the things that have been addressed, and the skilled investment regime.
That's very good. But here I'd like to also ask you, and like you to also further, because we have international audience. And what we are trying to communicate to the world now from Nigeria today, that like how this tax reforms is going to help the investors to take a positive decision in favor of Nigeria. So, what's your thought on it?
Well, we need to understand the objective of this reform. There are basic objectives, and this objective, of course, is to ensure that even these international, community that are in the country to do business, we're calling them to come and do business in Nigeria. You must make the environment very friendly for their businesses. So this have been brought together as the objective of this thing. This is to first overhaul and ensure that you modernize the tax system in line with the world standard. That's part of the things that the reform is trying to do now. It's also, we have also done in such a way that it's going to strengthen, the administration is going to be strengthened. It's going to be simplified. The compliance will be simplified. That's, if you go to, for instance, Ref 360 now, you could see the step by step things that you must do to ensure that they're not things that are way out of your reach. They are things that ordinarily you won't be able to do. And of course, it has also helped to increase the tax net, the tax base, for people that were, especially those informal sectors that were never in the tax base. All of them are now attracted to be on the tax system. Invariably, it will increase revenue for the government. Of course, if you are dealing with 1,000 taxpayers before, with the tax reform, you are not dealing with about 3, 4, 5,000 or a million taxpayers. Of course, it's going to translate into increased revenue for the government. But you will also discover that there will be ease of doing business, because things will be done seamlessly, unlike before. And the way people walk up to your office now to begin to ask you for taxes, you will know that there are things that ordinarily you would have known that you would have done. Self-assessments are there. You go to the platform, you know what and what to do. There are things that are within your reach. You do your filing without any glitches. You are done and you are okay. These are the things that the reform has brought forward. Again, there are people that are into digital, those people that you say are having digital assets, the people that are into crypto, businesses. Netflix, for instance, is making so much money in Nigeria. Google is making so much money in Nigeria, but because the rule says for you to be able to tax any foreigner, any non-resident, the residency rule that says that you must have a fixed base in the country, a permanent base. They don't have any permanent base, so they pay zero taxes. So now this tax reform has also defined what residency means.
Wow.
It has properly defined. When we get to that point, we'll look at how the tax reform has defined it, so that for people doing digital businesses, you now know you will be assessed. Those income you are making should also be accessible to tax in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, if you have to consolidate and come with what are the objectives of these reforms? If you have to consolidate quickly in few lines, how it's going to help, and what should be the possible reasons for this reform?
Like I said, it simplifies. So this reform is going to simplify compliance and encourage voluntary payment.
Okay.
It's going to encourage voluntary. Because when you look at what they're asking you, there are things that nobody's going to ask you for what you cannot get. They're only asking for a little out of the income they are making, and they will make the environment, make the environment very friendly for you. So the administration now is going to be well strengthened. They have set up an omnibus office. That omnibus office is like a taxpayer's defender. You can go and report to them, and they can, set up litigation on your behalf, even as a taxpayer.
So earlier it was not there.
We don't have such complaint center. It's more like a complaint center, and it's not just a complaint center. They can actually stand as your solicitor to fight the institution that I've replaced. Of course, I've had some critics who will say that, look, how will the Omnibus office fight the institution that's created that office? But the machinery is there. The structure is such that where there is maladministration of taxes, they can come up with those things. They also work on behalf of the National Assembly. In fact, they are like the eye of the regulatory authority or even the National Assembly in Nigeria. If there are fiscal, malfeasance, they can raise it, and government will look at it critically. So these are some of the things that have been introduced under this. Fiscalization is there, with fiscalization policy that's just been introduced, which was never there. Fiscalization now, enables the tax office, to know what you are doing in real time. You'll be making your VAT payment as your sales are going out. The first thing they've asked the large companies to do is to ensure that they have e-invoicing. So, and this is part of the things I would encourage, all the companies that are listening to me to do. You look at how do you do, because it's an electronic fiscal device that you need to put in your system that will enable you, ensure that there is proper e-invoicing, all your documentation are properly kept, so that at the time that you need to do remittances to government, you can defer to those documents easily. You can bring that, and as you are doing it, some of those documents are going to be linked to the tax office, because you will be asked to use electronic fiscal devices that are approved by the Revenue Service. So that way, they will be able to monitor sales rate and be sure that you are not doing any underpayment. If there are overpayment, refunds are meant to be given to you within a very short period. Now, loss auditors, and that's part of what I'm going to discuss here. Refund will be made available to you within a very short period. Once auditors come up with their evaluation that, look, truly you are entitled to that refund. Those are the things that have been addressed here, and the reform has aligned the taxes in such a way that it would not be in line with global practices. So it won't be anything, and there will be improvement of there will be serious improvement in the business environment. These are some of the things that the reform, that are the objectives of this reform. And I can tell you, if all of us will cooperate and do the right thing, we will not have any issue. All of us will, help drive home those objectives for which the reforms have been made. Thank you.
Okay, very good. That's great. So this will lead us to the question number 3, where we'll be talking about, as an individual, when and how are we affected and what are the implications?
Yes.
So till now we speak about the corporates, but what do you think about the individuals? What about the pay? In Nigeria.
Incidentally, even if you're talking about the corporates, the corporates also have the individuals working in them.
Okay, yes.
The corporate would have to pay payee, which is the pay as you earn for the individuals. So whether we're talking about corporate or we're talking about individual, we just categorize in such a way that the categorization is to enable us know, okay, these are the ones that are relevant to the individuals working in a corporate environment.
Can an individual go and see online what is his own status on tax portal?
Yes, an individual can do that now. In fact, if you go to Ref 360 now, there's a place where you see for individuals, there's a place where you see corporate, there's a place where you see partnership, joint venture. So you now go to wherever. First you register and have your tax ID with your password, so you can now go individual can do that.
Anyone.
Oh yes. Okay. So let's break it down to what the benefits are for an individual. To start with, there were consolidated reliefs for individuals, before all those dependent relatives, with a lot of complexities in that calculation. All those things have been reduced this time around, and it's been broken down to, okay, if it is rent relief, your rent relief will just be 20% of your annual rent, lower of 20% of your annual rent, and 500,000, whichever is lower. I give an example. If your salary is 1 million naira, 20% of it is 200,000, and that's your rent, annual rent is 1 million naira. 20% of it is 200,000. What we're saying is the total that can be deducted from your gross salary before we start calculating your pay is not more than 200,000. However, if your rent, because for some chief executives, their rent can be as high as 10 million naira. If your rent is 10 million naira, that means your 20% of it is about 2 million naira. What the law is saying is you cannot deduct more than 500,000. The cap is 500
Okay.
that you can deduct before we start calculating your pay, your pay as you earn. You understand? So again, there are other deductions that have always been allowed. The law allows those deductions to continue to be allowed, i.e., your life assurance. Those are the things you can deduct from your gross income before you start calculating your pay. Your national housing fund is also is an allowable expense. Your national health insurance, your national health insurance scheme, all those ones are allowable expense. Even your employee pension contribution, which is 8% of your basic plus transportation allowance plus your housing allowance, 8% of that is also an allowable deduction
From your salary.
before we can start calculating the pay as you earn. Then we also move forward. There's a major departure from what we used to have in the system that this reform has done. And that is to make this the tax regime highly progressive, especially to the extent that it helps the lower income group more than, usually progressive tax says that the higher you earn the higher you earn, the higher you pay. The lower you earn, the lower. But this one has done it in such a way that if your salary is about 800,000, you are going to pay zero tax.
Oh, so till 800,000 you don't have to pay.
Yeah, even for people that are now earning 2-3 million naira, the first 800,000 is calculated at 0%.
Okay.
So the next percentage has an attached rate. The next has an attached rate. Yes, so that is the way that has been graduated.
For our viewers.
Yes, we're going to do that.
Understand that.
Well, okay, let's quickly do that. Then we can come back.
See, this one. Sorry to interrupt you, but when we talk about pay calculations, and as a consultant, when we meet companies, most of them are always in doubt.
Yeah.
Like what is the percentage, because there's no plain percentage you can put to direct taxes, right?
That's right.
For the pay. So, and I think this rate will be all across the states.
Exactly. In fact, let me also mention that we ref 360 now. If you go there, you see a template that is already in the system. I will try and share my own template, and I will share it with you so I can send it to your people. What has been done on this template is to compare where we used to be and where we are now. You discover that the top marginal rate now has moved from 24 to 25. That's the highest there.
Correct.
You understand? But now, if you are earning, for instance, 10 million naira, the first 800,000 of your 10 million naira is going to be at zero rate.
Zero tax. Means that is a standard deduction.
That's a standard deduction.
Okay.
So the remaining 9.2 million naira, out of the remaining 9.2 million naira, we're saying 2 million naira next out of that will be at 15%. You get what it is.
Okay.
So when you have taken 2.2 from 9.2, you are left with 7 million naira.
Correct.
Out of that 7 million naira, we are saying the next 9 million, you don't have 9 million, but you have 7 million naira. So that final 7 million will go at 18%.
Okay.
But the total of that gives you the old tax burden that you need to carry.
I'm very happy to see all these numbers are changing, because with the tough terrain what we have, government is really trying their own part of it.
Yes.
And we will recommend and request the business houses to understand in a better
आज तक शमा पे परवाना मरता था, लेकिन आज परवाने पे ये शमा मरने को तैयार है।
थोड़ी फुर्सत भी मेरी जाग भी बाहों को दीजिए, थोड़ी फुर्सत भी मेरी जाग भी बाहों को दीजिए। आज की रात मजा हुस्न का आँखों से लीजिए, आज की रात मजा हुस्न का आँखों से लीजिए। वक्त बर्बाद न बिन बात की बातों में कीजिए, वक्त बर्बाद न बिन बात की बातों में कीजिए।
आज तक शमा पे परवाना मरता था, लेकिन आज परवाने पे ये शमा मरने को तैयार है।
थोड़ी फुर्सत भी मेरी जाग भी बाहों को दीजिए, थोड़ी फुर्सत भी मेरी जाग भी बाहों को दीजिए। आज की रात मजा हुस्न का आँखों से लीजिए, आज की रात मजा हुस्न का आँखों